your team, you took a consultative approach, which I think is what makes you different than a lot of IT leaders, that they are trying to create a static lockdown environment that will be standardized, which is an important first step in this. But you took a consultative approach in that, what do they need? What's next? How do we revolutionize? And this isn't just the end user. Your customer was the next company you bought.
Yeah.
How do I not sell them in a used car way, but how do I convince them that we've got something viable? You put proofs together.
Yep.
You showed them data. Half of your data gathering was to actually prove to the next business leader that you could do what you say about the end user. And you got them to take a leap of faith, not just to merge with the organization, but to take those little incremental steps to adopt the program. And I think that's something that's overlooked a lot.
Yeah, those leading and lagging KPIs, those dashboards, are just the tip of the spear, really.
Yeah.
We are in the process, and I don't even say early stages. We're past the early stage, but when part of my career, I grew up, and I mentioned the Anderson Consulting experience. All of the M&A work that we did was grounded in benefit realization models.
Yep.
Right. There was a hypothesis that stood on the pillars of these business cases, and the business cases had benefit realization models tied to them, where we, made some assumptions along the way, but projected what the value was going to be year 2, year 3, year 4. And in some cases, in the case of ACSC, where, there was a charitable organization merging with a nonprofit organization. And so there was some activity with some of the government in Texas about the value of this merger. And we had to prove it out. And we built these benefit realization models to be able to prove it out and track the benefits over time. Now, it's not an exact and perfect science, but Doug Hubbard, who lives up the street here, who wrote, I think he wrote the book "You Can Measure Anything," and I'm paraphrasing.
Yes.
But he's a brilliant mind, and I think he's over in the western suburbs of Chicago. I've met with him numerous times way back when I lived here. You can measure anything if you're willing to make some assumptions about certain conditions and factors and the impact those factors have on an end result. And now we've gotten to a point in our world, we're getting more sophisticated, and we're doing correlations of cause and effect in the marketing world, which is what I mentioned about earlier. I'm so excited about these use cases because we're actually building benefit realization models around these use cases.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of hypothesis and are we tracking a cause or effect?
Yep.
But you have to lay those down, test them, proof them out, deliver a high correlation with some standard KPI, and repeat.
Right. And we're not married to exactness, and we recognize that we will make adjustments along the way. But I think, being able to demonstrate that to potential new acquisitions takes us even further down the road of, being more confident of what we can do with a company that is joining us that has had a history of growth, and now this shared services model layered on top to let you do the things that you do well, and that's servicing the homeowner.
Yeah. I think those are great points. And right below that, some of the neat things that I've been able to see your organization go through is not only are you assimilating these new organizations into your plan, and you're not pushing it, like you said, you're being consultative to companies that you now own. Mm-hmm. And I think that nuance is a good lesson to M&A in general. Look, just because you own them, you can't treat them like they're indentured servants. You still have to treat them like your client. That's why I said the consulting inward, I think, is important. Those lessons have to be extended to the teams that you get. And you've gotten, along the way, you've acquired a lot of IT folks too. Yeah. And you've done a good job of cultivating them into your kind of consultative mindset. I'm just curious. I haven't been privy to those conversations, and what do you tell the some of the younger folks that maybe are part of a small portfolio company, and what kind of mindset are you walking into, and what are you trying to do from a mentorship standpoint?
Well, I think that out of the gate they are. We've had some attrition.
Yes, it's natural.
It's not for everyone.
Not for everybody.
But for those employees that, for lack of a better phrase, we inherited from an acquisition that want career growth, that want to learn, right? This is a great field to learn, because you're now no longer XYZ, or Joe's HVAC company. You're part of a broader organization that's bringing to bear a lot of talent, knowledge, experience. So, the sky's the limit for a lot of the IT employees that come with the acquisitions, if they want that for their careers.
Yeah.
And, we've seen it down in one of our Florida acquired companies. A young man who was in the trades, I want to say he was in plumbing, had an interest in IT. And he was probably the guy that, prior to our acquisition, was troubleshooting, laptops or desktops or even tablets, because he had a technical skill set.
Yeah.
And maybe an uneducated or a non-formally educated skill set.
Like you and I were when we got out of school.
Right.
There's no such thing as IT.
Yeah. After my EDS boot camp, before my EDS boot camp, I didn't know anything. But he, expressed interest in, transitioning to a technology role. He's one of our best field IT people.
Yeah.
And he opened his mind to learning.
Yes.
And there's a lot of people that he can learn from, and I think he's done a wonderful job.
But you culturally were open enough to give these folks a chance to do something that they maybe had never even envisioned they could end up doing.
Yeah, our going in position with respect to talent recruitment and talent onboarding is hire for attitude, train for skill.
Yes.
Now, there are certain roles that you kind of have to walk in the door with some level of skill.
Like CFO.
That's one of them. But even like our Databricks and data engineers. But, just recently, someone I know who just started to dip their toe in the pool of data analytics and data engineering, he's an attorney. And he's, much further down the path in his career than many others who come to us for, with interest in employment. But I think we're going to either end up onboarding him as a consultant, as a business data analyst, or maybe even a hire, because the attitude is there.
Nice. And
he's walking in the door with some skills that he's learned on his own, but the attitude is aligned with the way we think and the cultural immersion that we're trying to create, not just in IT, but in all of the areas of shared service within Wrench Group.